On this day in 44 BC, one of the most famous men in the world met his end at the hands of a group of senators in the Roman Senate. That's right, it's the assassination of Julius Caesar. You might be wondering why exactly these people decided to kill him. And I don't blame you, because there were a ton of reasons and a lot of people who wanted him dead. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's go all the way back to the beginning. Julius Caesar was born into an old and somewhat noble Roman family. However, they weren't so rich or powerful that he didn't have to work for money, unlike some of his contemporaries. And work he did, climbing the political ladder slowly but surely. And by 60 BC, he was really making a name for himself, becoming part of the first triumvirate, a group of 3 men who essentially ruled Rome, controlling both the military and the government. The other 2 members of this triumvirate were Pompey and Crassus. Unfortunately, Crassus died in 53 BC while putting down a slave revolt in Greece. And with him out of the picture, it left Caesar and Pompey as the de facto leaders of Rome. Except things weren't exactly sunshine and rainbows between them, as their relationship began to deteriorate, eventually leading to a full-blown conflict. Pompey was the more traditional politician of the 2, gaining his power through a series of elections and forming alliances, while Caesar was a military man who gained his power mostly through conquest, each of them representing different aspects of Roman society, each believing that they were the true face of Rome and that the other was an obstacle to be removed. So they went to war with each other, fighting across Italy until Caesar emerged victorious. And now, being the most powerful man in Rome, Caesar took the title of Dictator Perpetuo, which literally means perpetual dictator. He began enacting many reforms, some good, some bad, depending on who you ask, and in doing so, made a lot of enemies who saw him as a threat to the Roman way of life. Now, one of these people was a senator named Cassius, who we will meet again later. In fact, we've already met him, but we just don't know it yet. But for now, let's continue our story. One of Caesar's biggest supporters was Mark Antony, a fellow general and Caesar's right-hand man, and together they were a formidable duo. But another senator named Brutus was also close friends with Caesar, often dining with him and his wife, Calpurnia. And then there was Caesar's wife's father, a senator named Marcus Junius Brutus, who had even adopted Caesar's heir, also named Marcus Junius Brutus. You see where I'm going with this? The families of Caesar and Brutus were extremely close, with Brutus and Cassius being sort of like Caesar's brothers-in-law. So when Caesar was warned of an impending assassination plot against him, and that the Ides of March would be his last, he dismissed it, thinking that it was just another false warning probably sent by his enemies to scare him. Unfortunately for him, it wasn't. As Caesar was walking through the Senate on that fateful day, he was surrounded by a group of senators and stabbed over 20 times before collapsing and bleeding to death. And among those senators were both of the men named Brutus, along with many others who felt that Caesar had betrayed Rome and needed to die. There are many different accounts of what happened next, but I'll tell you the one that I think is the most likely. After killing Caesar, the senators thought that they had done Rome a great service and freed the city from tyranny, but soon realized that without Caesar, Rome would descend into chaos and civil war. And so they fled Rome, leaving the city in turmoil, hoping to come back once everything settled down. But settle it did not. Instead, Rome became a battleground with Caesar's allies, most notably Mark Antony and Octavian, who would later become the first emperor of Rome, fighting to avenge Caesar's death and punish those responsible. In the end, Antony and Octavian came out on top, defeating the assassins at the Battle of Philippi in 42 BC. But revenge was only one of the factors that led to this victory, the other being the fact that the assassins weren't very good at their job. While crossing the Tiber River to escape Rome, both of the men named Brutus drowned, one jumping into the river and the other having his boat capsized. So that's the end of the story. Except it isn't. You see, there's no real way to know what actually happened. All we have are the writings of people who had their own agendas and biases. For example, Plutarch, whose account I mostly used for this video, wrote his stories over 1,000 years after the fact and was clearly a Greek sympathizer. The truth is, we know almost nothing about any of these people except what they chose to tell us. So take everything with a grain of salt. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out my other content where I cover all sorts of historical tales from around the world. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.